I don't think we have any realistic chance of reclaiming it anytime soon.
Well, let me explain it this way.
Say about
When under the present international law, the the colonies of colonial powers, and that includes British North Borneo, uh, must be given the right. The people there must be given the right to self-determination. So, uh, if when we claimed it, the UN conducted actually a referendum. And in the referendum, the people there said we want to join Malaysia. Now we questioned that there was no free and informed consent. But there was we were the ones who requested for that referendum. The UN conducted the referendum, and the people decided to join Malaysia. So, but we questioned that there was no free and informed consent because uh, they were not allowed to discuss it fully. So, but uh, if we press the issue, the most that we can get, assuming that we will win, the most that we can get is another referendum.
Which
Because
I
of
don't
that
think will go
principle.
our way. I mean, let's just be. You think people of Sabah want to join the Philippines? I think the people of Sabah want to be
That's
independent
what
from
I'm.
all of us.
That's
They
where
want
I'm
to own for
going.
themselves. Exactly. So I
Yes,
just think this is ridiculous. We're
that's
not
where I'm
realistic
going.
about this. Yeah.
Assuming that we will, if we file an arbitration, we win. The award will say, okay, we'll follow the principle of international law, the right to self-determination. Let's hold another referendum. We can never win, and that is what is missing. The people don't know. Our politicians don't understand that. They keep on saying, "Let's press on with the Sabah claim." I said, "Wait a minute. That means that, assuming Malaysia will agree, uh, the most favorable ruling for us is another referendum, and we will be embarrassed again because the vote will be against us definitely." So I said, why can't we just put this in the back burner, or let's find a way to peacefully settle this where
What about a
it
claim
serves
settlement
our,
between House of Kiram and Kuala Lumpur? Just one
yeah.
final payment, final tapos na.
Yeah, that's another one. Let there be a compensation, final payment, and everything, and that's it. Because if we follow international law, and I always follow international law, the most that we can get is another referendum, and there's no way we can win under the present circumstances.
Exactly. I mean, anyone who understands, they rather be on their own. They don't like Kuala Lumpur. The more they won't like the Philippines, right? So that's why I'm saying it's a taximeter running and costing us because it's preventing us from developing an optimal relationship with Malaysia on other issues. And we know one reason Malaysia was supporting MILF and MNLF all these years was to bog us down. So we're paying a big cost for this kind of a, again, I hated when pro-China people use the Sabah issue to project charot, parang, excuse me, like, so you're saying, and pasok natin yung Sabah para kaaway natin Malaysia, para hindi natin lapat. Diba? They do that, diba? Pansin mo, yung mga Duterte people, pro-China people, they always use the Sabah issue. Anong sinabi ni Pinoy kay Sabah? Anong sinabi ni BBM sa Sabah? Which is, Robin Hood Padilla keeps on bringing the Sabah issue and all of that. I mean, this is performative nonsense. This is performative
Yeah,
nonsense.
that's why I always tell them, if you press the Sabah issue, assuming we win all the way, the award, the most that we will get is another referendum, another shot at the referendum, and we will be terribly uh,
Embarrassed.
uh, embarrassed.
Yeah, if not humiliated. Yeah, by the final, no one in his right mind would think that, people in Sabah would want to, would not want to go it on their own and forget about joining the Philippines, right? I really had to bring that up, Justice, because, we're transitioning to Malaysian chairmanship of ASEAN next year. It's very, very important. And of course, there's a troika, diba? The outgoing, the present, and the future, meaning Philippines, now Laos, and Malaysia eventually have to sit down and discuss what the heck is going to happen. The other issue is Gaza. I want to ask you on this, Justice Carpio. Philippines is quite different, right? I mean, everyone knows the basics of the case. I think our position is much closer to where Americans stand, or at least conservative Americans stand. Although I've been talking to Republicans, even in South Carolina and Georgia, they had different take on the Gaza issue. what I mean is this: if you go to Malaysia, you go to Brunei, even Thailand, forget about Indonesia, they feel very strongly about the Gaza issue, and they feel that the Gaza issue is exposing the hypocrisies of the West. It's exposing that the rules-based international order only applies if it's Ukraine or the West, but if it's Muslims and Palestine, it doesn't. And feeling the Philippines is a little bit outside the consensus in ASEAN or Global South. And China is really weaponizing this issue para magpapogi sila. That's why I always say, wait, ano ulit ang ginawa ng China sa mga Uyghurs? Sa mga Muslim sila. But obviously, China is inaano niya, di ba? So what do you think is the healthy way forward? Because I've talked to our friends in DFA. One issue that is raised by some people who are very close to Anwar told me they took issue with us keep on emphasizing your right to self-defense. Sabi nila, well, Palestine, Gaza is like occupied territory. We're not talking about the war between two sovereign states. The occupiers have certain response. So essentially, they have had issues with our positioning on the Gaza conflict, which they feel is way outside the consensus of ASEAN or Global South country, and much more, I don't know, Republican, if not the US administration position. What do you think about this? Because the Gaza issue, if it's a Gulf that is also affecting our ability to work with ASEAN on the South China Sea issue. At least this is my understanding, Justice. You may disagree with me. You may feel we can compartmentalize, but I don't think we can compartmentalize. I think Gaza will be a central priority for Malaysia when they take over next year. And they'll use that over and over again to say China is not bad, West is evil.
Of course, I'm for a Palestinian state. I mean, the US is for a Palestinian state. And I think it has to be a solution in that direction, because once there's a Palestinian state, then that state assumes responsibility for Gaza. Right now, the PLO has no responsibility because they're not in control, and it's the Hamas group, they've never held another election. So I think that has to be, if we concentrate on Gaza, we will never come to a acceptable compromise for everybody. I think the US, the world, agree that there must be a Palestinian state. I think that should be the solution. And once there is a solution on that, Gaza will be resolved. It will just be part of the bigger solution. So I think if we keep on hammering on Gaza, it will be the anger of the moment. We have to look at the overall picture, and this will only be solved if there's a Palestinian state. And Israel was about to accept before a Palestinian state, and the US cannot get out of that. They already said they are for a Palestinian state. The world is for a Palestinian state. Let's start with that, because everybody is agreed. If we work for that Palestinian state, nobody can complain. I think we will get a better traction.
And just again, I know this is a sensitive issue, but this has to do with ASEAN relations, and I think this is very important for us to handle. What about the ICJ and ICC case regarding the conduct of war in Gaza? Where do you think the Philippines should stand on these issues?
Well, we should support the rule of law there. If it is a crime against humanity, it's a crime against humanity. If it's a war crime, it's a war crime. But I think that will exacerbate. Let us do something that everybody has agreed already, and that is a Palestinian state. So if we tell our Malaysian friends, okay, why don't you let's come out with the position. We are for a Palestinian state. And that's one thing we all agree.
The thing is, because the Knesset of Israel recently, I think, passed a resolution opposing the two-state solution. So things are moving in a very different direction inside Israel nowadays with the rise of the right. So, it's a very tricky situation, as we can see. So I expect some ASEAN countries to take a very tough stance against where Israel is going on this kind of issues. And And I think that's where they feel the Philippines is not moving in the same direction, considering the historical relationship with Israel and, of course, our
Well,
alliance.
I would suggest that we make a counter proposal, a proposal that we push for a two-state solution. Everybody agrees. It's a proposal that nobody will object. Everybody will agree, and I think that will create the momentum if we do that.
Right. And in fairness to the DFA, and of course I also talked to Secretary Manal, among others, it's very clear the Philippines has voted in favor of Palestine in multiple resolutions over the past 6 months or so. So it's not like the Philippines, has been biased in favor of one side or the other. I think we have taken a very balanced position. I also understand the emotions because may mga namatay na Pilipino nung nagkaroon ng terrorist attack no October 7. So violent attacks. I mean, for me, any attack on civilians is terrorism. So I'm absolutely clear about this. This is not about taking sides. This is about opposing violations of international humanitarian law. Last point, Justice Carpio, Vietnam. Vietnam has riled up China. Again, like there are a lot of these makapili people saying, "Oh, see, Philippines lang ang pampagulo, tayo lang ang troublemaker. Tignan mo ang bait ng Vietnam, tignan mo ang bait ng Indonesia." But if you check the news, once again, we're seeing both Indonesia and Vietnam are pushing back again because iritang-irita na naman sila sa ginagawa ng China. And Vietnam wants to push for its extended continental shelf. And Indonesia wants to make it sure that China can make no nonsensical claims over Natuna areas. Can you talk about that? Because we have to remind a lot of people na hindi totoo yung ASEAN na tayo lang lumalaban. Iba lang siguro, mas vocal lang tayo ngayon after 6 years of Duterte.
Yeah.
But all of us have headaches with China and we are fighting back in our own little ways.
Yeah, and I think we're coming to a common ground. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, even Indonesia, but Indonesia is not involved in the overlapping external foreign shelf. So my proposal is this is the opportune time for the three countries, Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines, to gang up on China because China is the outsider.
Tag team.
Tayo, we really have an overlapping claim. More so with Vietnam. Malaysia may have a little overlapping claim, but the real outsider here who doesn't have any valid reason to claim is China. And we can bring China to arbitration and also include Malaysia and Vietnam because they will state their position, and their position will be against China. The position of Vietnam will be against China, our position is against China, and the position of Malaysia is against China. So the three will have a common position against China, and that's how we can isolate China here.
So we're back in business. There is hope after all to work it. Kasi tayong dalawa, we have been covering this, in your case, even longer than me, but I've been writing on this issue for more than 10 years. Ang sabi ko, don't take a snapshot and say this is the situation. Look at the longitudinal situation and everyone is resisting China. Hindi totoo na Filipinas lang lumalaban. So I think I'm glad, and that's why I keep on talking about ASEAN diplomacy and all of that. Thank you very much, Justice Carpio, for this fantastic conversation. I appreciate my bata na gustong pumasok sa doors. I have to respond. Julia, mi amor, okay. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for this fantastic conversation. As always, is there something you want to share with folks? Is there something you want them to read? Yung letter po nyo kay President Marcos Jr. regarding Pogo?
Yes, we